On today's episode, we take a look at some of my best finds from the Minnesota hunting trip. Hello all, and welcome back to Lily Bees. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at some of the bottles that I was able to bring back from Minnesota and sort of follow up on our last video where I brought you along on that trip. I also wanted to mention something new to the channel is today's pour, and what I'm going to try and do so that you can follow along if you're interested is at the end of each episode I'm going to include what next week's pour will be. So if that's something you have or would like to go out and get, you can join along with what I'll be having each week. So today's pour, funny enough, is one of our Minnesota picks. This is Baker's 7. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look at some of the best picks that I was able to achieve, and I broke these down into 3 different categories. These categories are somewhat what we previously discussed as far as, are they a regional allocation that you're only going to find in a certain area? Are they a bottle that you've had before and you're searching for because it's maybe no longer available? Or is this a highly allocated sort of bottle that's hard to find no matter where you are? So we'll start over here on the far left. This bottle in particular is all over Minnesota. And one thing that I had in mind while I was up there is if there's something that's widely available and it's going to be sitting there all day, every day, I didn't want to stock up on that bottle in particular. So this comes from Redwood Empire, which is a Sonoma County, California distillery. They have sort of what I would call their baseline selections, which is going to be your Lost Monarch, which we have here. They also have Pipe Dream and Emerald Giant. Those are kind of the 3 main that you'll see. This is a blend of bourbon and rye, the Lost Monarch. The Emerald Giant is their rye offering. And then another one I picked up that's not pictured today is Pipe Dream, which is their bourbon. So I was able to get a backup bottle of the Lost Monarch because I tend to lean rye. I prefer rye, and that's a real good one. I wasn't able to find any of the special offerings. They have a couple cask strength of each of these 3, and then what they call the haystack needle, which are even harder to find. I wasn't able to secure those, but I was happy with the 2 that I got, and I know that there's more available if I wanted to go back. Next in line, I'll actually put these 3 together. These are all Willet products. And Willet, just like Redwood Empire, falls into the category of regionally available all the time, from what I could tell. I saw this all over, and so what I'm thinking ahead of time is Minnesota is going to be Willet and Redwood and Penelope. It's everywhere. And so those are bottles that I, again, didn't really stock up on. But these were a few that I have been really curious about. You'll see Noah's Mill and Rowan's Creek just about everywhere. And then this is one that I'm pretty excited about. This is just kind of a low end, and if you're in an area where these are available, you might be laughing at some of these choices because you see them all the time and you know that they're either really good or not good at all. This is called Old Bardstown Estate, another Willet product. The name comes from where the Willet Distillery is located in Bardstown, Kentucky. And this is about a $33 or $4 bottle, again, widely available. So I'm excited to get into that. Next on the list, as I already mentioned, is our pour of the day. And this quickly became one of my favorites. And so this falls into the category of something I had already had or been recommended that I was looking for that reason. Funny enough, I found my first bottle of this in Iowa. There was a single bottle at a Hy-Vee store, and I was lucky to grab it because, as far as I can tell, it's not available or may no longer be available in the state, but it's all over Minnesota once again. So you'll see this just about every store that you go, and a full shelf. This is about a $55 to $60 bottle. It's a 7+ year product, so at least 7. And it's a single barrel product, so every one you get, as long as it's from a different barrel, is going to be a little bit different, so that's kind of fun. This one in particular is an 8-year bottle, and quickly became one of my favorites, so I made sure to grab an extra one of those. But again, knowing that it's available year-round, so didn't need to buy them all for any reason. This is, by the way, a Jim Beam product. And with any of these where I've got multiple from the same location, I'm excited to get into some future reviews of the Jim Beam bottles and the Willet and the Redwood and stuff like that, so stay tuned for that. Next on the list falls into the recommended category, but also not available in my area. This is Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit, and this falls into a category that I was looking for because I had the other 2 offerings in this series. So you've got the Wild Turkey Rye, you've got the Wild Turkey Bourbon, rare breed, and so this falls into that rare breed category. And we'll also do a review on those 3 bottles head to head in the future. Next was a recommended bottle. This is kind of unique for you Irish fans. This is Powers 3 Swallow, and this is one that's available all over Minnesota for the most part. About a $40 bottle, I think it was, and this was recommended from another channel that I watch, and I've been looking for it. It's been on my list for quite a while, and we have the standard Red Label Powers products here, but never the 3 Swallow. So this was also kind of in both categories where I knew I wanted it based on a recommendation, but also regionally available. Finally, in both of those categories once again, was recommended by another YouTube channel, the same one that this comes from and this comes from. This is Pikesville Rye. And this was, I wouldn't say widely available, but I did see this in a few different locations, as you may have seen on the last video. Recommended from another YouTube channel, and I'm excited to get into that, being a rye fan. Our final category would be the highly allocated bottles that you're always looking for, no matter what region you're in. And if you've noticed, so far, I haven't found any of those, and I didn't find any. However, at the end of the last video, I talked about being pulled into an office and seeing some very high-end stuff. That's pretty typical. You're going to see that about anywhere you go if you've hunted enough, where you have a collection that you run into at crazy prices. And so it's not something really worth mentioning or getting excited about. The final set of bottles that I wanted to mention are the honorable mentions, and that would be these 3 here. We have Henry McKenna 10-year, bottled in bond, Shanky's Whip, and Pritchard's Sweet Lucy. The reason these are in a category of their own are because these were actually purchased in Iowa, but are very hard to find. And these were available, I saw these a few different places, some of them all over the place by the case. Some places full shelves, hit or miss, but they were widely available. And so I wanted to put these in their own category because I didn't technically haul these back because I knew I already had them. But if these are 3 that you might be interested in and you're in a state that has them, just to let you know that they're hard to find in some places where they could be very common in your case. Henry McKenna bottled in bond is about a $55 to $60 bottle, depending on where you are. It's a 10-year product and is very highly rated, so I recommend that quite a bit. Shanky's Whip is a fun one. This is a sort of a cordial or a liqueur. It's got a caramel and vanilla flavor, similar to like an amaretto, in my opinion. And you can do a variety of things with it. You can mix it with pop or have it on ice by itself, different things like that. And it's only about a $25 to $28 bottle, so it's fun to try. The final is Pritchard's Sweet Lucy. I haven't opened this yet, but it's similar to Shanky's Whip in that it's a low-proof liqueur, and so we'll have that as our fresh crack on a future video. Speaking of, wanted to mention next week's bottle that we'll be trying. This is Stranahan's Blue Peak. This is a single malt. I'm very excited to get into this. And with any of the fresh cracks, I'm going to try and pick a bottle that's somewhat available so that it's not going to be Blanton's or something like that, where it's going to be very hard to find and you can't join along. So anyway, stay tuned for the next episode where we'll be trying Stranahan's Blue Peak. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe as always, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.